If the education system was truly designed to make people wealthy, wusste seid. The richest people on earth would be teachers and professors, but they are not. And that should immediately make you uncomfortable, because from the moment you entered a classroom as a small child, you were told something very specific about success. Study hard, get good grades, graduate from a good school, find a stable job, and eventually, financial security will follow. But if that formula actually worked, millions of highly educated people would not be drowning in debt, living paycheck to paycheck, and struggling to survive despite having degrees on their walls. Look closely at the real world and you will notice something strange. Many of the wealthiest individuals on the planet built their fortunes outside the traditional education system. People like Warren Buffett built wealth through investing. Entrepreneurs like Elon Musk built companies that reshaped entire industries. And tech pioneers like Steve Jobs changed the world without following the traditional academic path. Meanwhile, millions of graduates walk out of universities with something far less exciting: student debt, stress, and a career path that trades the next 40 years of their life for a monthly paycheck. So the real question is not whether school teaches useful information. The real question is this: why does the system that prepares you for life never teach you how money actually works? To understand the answer, we must first examine the original purpose of the modern education system, and when you see how it was designed, everything begins to make sense. The original purpose of school. Most people believe the modern education system was created to help individuals reach their full potential, but historically, that was never the primary goal. The modern school system was built during the Industrial Revolution. At that time, factories were expanding rapidly, and companies needed a very specific type of worker, not entrepreneurs, not investors, workers. Factories required people who could follow instructions, arrive on time, obey authority, and perform repetitive tasks for long hours without questioning the system, and schools were redesigned to produce exactly that type of individual. Look closely at how school operates. Students sit in rows, they follow schedules, they obey bells that signal when to start and stop working. They ask permission to speak. They are rewarded for memorizing information and punished for questioning authority. Does this environment resemble a place designed to create independent thinkers? Or does it resemble a training ground for future employees? This system was incredibly effective because instead of teaching people how to build wealth, it trained them to become reliable participants in an economic machine. But to fully understand why money education is absent from schools, we must examine the first invisible trap built into the system. Trap 1: the employee mindset. From the first day of school, students are subtly taught to pursue one specific outcome: employment. You are encouraged to study hard so you can get a good job. Teachers ask students, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Doctor, engineer, lawyer, accountant. Notice something important. Every one of these answers describes a job. Very rarely does the system encourage students to think about becoming investors, business owners, or capital allocators. Instead, success is framed around earning a salary. And while earning a salary can provide stability, it also creates a fundamental limitation. Your income becomes tied to your time. This means there is a hard ceiling on how much money you can earn, because no matter how talented or hardworking you are, there are only 24 hours in a day. The people who build extraordinary wealth operate differently. They focus on ownership of businesses, ownership of assets, ownership of systems that generate income even when they are not actively working. But schools rarely teach this distinction because the system requires far more employees than it does entrepreneurs. If every graduate attempted to build companies instead of working for them, the economic structure would collapse. So the education system quietly reinforces a worldview where employment is the safest and most logical path. But this creates another powerful trap. Rule 3: liabilities destroy wealth. Luxury cars, expensive gadgets, and status purchases drain your financial resources. Rule 4: time is the most powerful financial force. The earlier you begin investing, the more powerful compounding becomes. These concepts are simple, yet millions of people reach adulthood without ever hearing them, which leads to another dangerous financial trap. Trap 3: the consumption loop. Modern society encourages constant spending. Advertising tells you that happiness can be purchased. A new phone, a luxury car, designer clothing, exotic vacations. These purchases create temporary feelings of success, but they also quietly drain your financial future. Because every dollar spent on consumption is a dollar that cannot be invested. The wealthy often understand this dynamic early in life. For example, Warren Buffett famously lived in the same modest house for decades while building one of the largest investment portfolios in history. Why? Because wealth is built through disciplined capital allocation, not lifestyle inflation. But without financial education, many people fall into the consumption trap. They earn money, spend it, earn more, spend more, and repeat the cycle for decades. Yet there is one final trap that prevents people from escaping this pattern, and it happens inside the human brain. Trap 4. The cognitive exhaustion trap. When people work long hours just to pay bills, something dangerous happens. Their mental energy disappears. After a stressful workday, most individuals do not feel motivated to study investing strategies or analyze business opportunities. They want relief, entertainment, distraction. This creates a cycle where people remain too exhausted to build the systems that could eventually free them. Meanwhile, those who understand the value of time structure their lives differently. They protect their mental energy. They study markets, they analyze opportunities, they invest patiently. This difference in behavior compounds over time. Small financial decisions made consistently for 20 years can create enormous differences in outcomes. Which brings us to the most important question of all. If the system will not teach you about money, how do you learn the escape plan? Escaping financial ignorance does not require extraordinary intelligence. It requires curiosity. It requires questioning the assumptions you were taught. And most importantly, it requires learning the rules of capital allocation. Study businesses. Study investing. Understand how money flows through the global economy. Because once you understand these systems, the world begins to look very different. You start to recognize opportunities. You begin to think like an owner instead of an employee. And slowly, step by step, you can begin building assets that generate income independently of your time. This process is not fast. It does not happen overnight, but over long periods of time, disciplined investing and asset ownership can create something incredibly powerful. Freedom. The freedom to choose how you spend your time. The freedom to pursue meaningful work. The freedom to step off the treadmill that millions of people run on every day. Final message. The education system was never designed to teach you everything you need to know about life. It was designed to prepare you for a role within the economy, but that does not mean you must remain confined to that role. You can choose to learn the rules that were never included in your textbooks. You can study how wealth is actually built. You can begin thinking like an investor instead of simply a worker. Because at the end of the day, financial freedom does not come from the information you were given. It comes from the information you were curious enough to seek out on your own. And once you understand how money truly works, you stop asking the system for permission. You start building your own.